My name is James, 62 years old, a retired architect. I stood there frozen watching as my daughter Sophia handed the keys to my villa over to her in-laws. The home I had designed, built, and poured my entire life savings into. Everything changed after she married Robert. Now I was witnessing her give away my greatest possession like it meant nothing. The shock paralyzed me as she looked back with cold, unfamiliar eyes and said, "It is theirs now." I could not believe what was happening. Before I continue with this story, let me know where you are watching from. Hit that like and subscribe button if you have ever felt betrayed by someone you loved unconditionally. Trust me, what happened next will show you that sometimes the deepest wounds can lead to unexpected strength. I never had it easy growing up. From humble beginnings in a small town in Ohio, I worked my way up from being a construction worker to becoming a respected architect. Every callus on my hands told a story of determination. I put myself through night school while working days on construction sites, learning both the practical and theoretical sides of building homes. After 7 years of this grueling schedule, I finally earned my architecture license. It was during my first major project that I met Martha. She was a talented interior designer assigned to the same luxury apartment complex. Her creativity complemented my technical precision perfectly. We fell in love quickly, married within a year, and soon welcomed our beautiful daughter Sophia into the world. Those were the happiest days of my life. Martha was everything to me. Kind, intelligent, with a laugh that could light up the darkest room. We built our life together brick by brick, just like the homes I designed. When Sophia was born, Martha scaled back her work to focus on raising our daughter, while I took on more projects to support our growing family. We were not wealthy by any means, but we were comfortable, and more importantly, we were happy. Our daughter Sophia grew into a bright and curious child. She had her mother's creativity and my stubborn determination. Martha and I agreed on one thing above all else: we would give Sophia every opportunity we never had. We saved every extra penny for her education fund instead of taking vacations or buying luxury items. Our greatest indulgence was our weekly family movie night, with homemade popcorn and ice cream. Then 15 years ago, I started work on what would become my legacy, our family villa. It was not just a house, but a manifestation of everything Martha and I had worked for. Located on a beautiful piece of land overlooking a lake, I designed every inch of that home with our family in mind. The southern exposure in the living room because Martha loved natural light. The extra-large kitchen for our Sunday family cooking sessions. The library with built-in bookshelves because we all loved to read. And a special studio space where Martha could pursue her art. Martha never got to see the villa completed. During construction, she was diagnosed with aggressive breast cancer. Despite the best treatments available, we lost her 5 years ago. Her last coherent words to me were about the house. "Finish it, James," she had whispered. "Finish it for Sophia." And I did. After Martha passed, I threw myself into completing the villa, pouring all my grief and love into every detail. It became my tribute to Martha and our life together. The garden was planted with all her favorite flowers. I installed the stained glass window she had designed for the stairwell landing. Our bedroom remained exactly as she had planned it, though I moved into the guest room unable to sleep in our bed without her. Throughout this difficult time, Sophia and I grew even closer. She was 25 when her mother died, already working at a marketing firm after graduating with honors from university. The loss devastated her, but she showed remarkable strength. She would come over every Sunday, and we would cook Martha's recipes together, keeping her memory alive through these small rituals. As I approached retirement, I made a decision. The villa would be Sophia's inheritance, my gift to her to ensure her future security. It was worth considerable money now, as property values in our area had skyrocketed, But more than its monetary value, it was our family legacy filled with memories and love. I planned to give it to her as a wedding present whenever she found the right person, with just one condition: that I could continue living there until I passed. It seemed like the perfect plan to keep our family connected while giving Sophia her independence. Little did I know that this act of love would lead to the most painful betrayal of my life. The first signs of change began when Sophia met Robert at a charity gala hosted by her marketing firm. She called me the very next day, bubbling with excitement about the amazing man she had met. Robert came from the prestigious Whitaker family, owners of one of the largest real estate development companies in the state. Old money, as they say. When Sophia brought Robert to the villa for dinner a month later, I tried to be welcoming despite my initial reservations. He was handsome, I will give him that, with perfectly styled hair and a tailored suit that probably cost more than my first car. His manners were impeccable, but there was something rehearsed about his charm that set off warning bells in my mind. "Your home is quite quaint, Mr. Davidson," he remarked while looking around our living room. "It has character." The way he said character made it sound like a flaw rather than a compliment. Still, I smiled and thanked him, reminding myself that this man was important to my daughter. 2 weeks later, Sophia invited me to meet Robert's family. The Whitaker estate made my villa look modest in comparison. Their mansion sat on 20 acres of manicured grounds, with a private tennis court and indoor swimming pool. During dinner, I felt like an exhibit in a museum as they questioned me about my background. "Construction worker turned architect," Robert's father, Harold Whitaker, repeated after I explained my career path. "How enterprising of you." His wife, Margaret, barely concealed a smirk behind her wineglass. Throughout the evening, they made subtle comments about new money and self-made men, as if these were amusing novelties rather than accomplishments. Sophia, who had always been so proud of my journey from working class to professional, sat silently, occasionally shooting me apologetic glances. After that dinner, I noticed small changes in my daughter. She began dropping casual references to summering in the Hamptons and wintering in Aspen, adopting the vocabulary of Robert's world. She started commenting on the outdated aspects of the villa, suggesting renovations that would make it more contemporary and sophisticated. "Dad, have you thought about updating the kitchen?" she asked one Sunday during our cooking session. The Whitakers just installed the most amazing Italian marble countertops in their summer home. "This kitchen was designed by your mother," I reminded her gently. "Besides, it functions perfectly well as it is. Mom would have wanted us to keep up with the times." She countered a response that stung more than she knew. The wedding planning accelerated these changes. What I had envisioned as an intimate ceremony at our local church, where Sophia had been baptized, quickly transformed into an extravagant affair at the Whitaker estate. My input was neither sought nor welcomed. "The Whitakers are handling everything, Dad," Sophia explained when I asked about helping with the costs. "They have connections with all the best vendors." On the day of the wedding, I found myself relegated to the role of spectator rather than father of the bride. The ceremony was beautiful but impersonal, more like a society event than a family celebration. When it came time for my speech, I was allotted precisely 3 minutes, while Harold Whitaker spoke for nearly 15. Despite these warning signs, I still went forward with my plan to give Sophia the villa as her wedding gift. I had my lawyer draw up the deed transfer with the single condition that I would retain lifetime residency rights. After the reception, I pulled Sophia aside and presented her with the documents in a silver envelope. "This is your mother's and my gift to you," I said, my voice thick with emotion. "The villa is yours now with just one small condition, so your old man has a place to live out his days." Sophia hugged me tightly, then tears in her eyes. For a moment she seemed like my little girl again. "Thank you, Daddy," she whispered. "I promise we will take good care of it. And you." That promise would prove as substantial as morning mist under the hot sun. After returning from their month-long honeymoon across Europe, Sophia announced that she and Robert would be moving into the villa with me. Initially, I was thrilled, thinking this meant more time with my daughter. What I did not realize was that this was just the first step in the gradual erosion of my place in my own home. The invasion began subtly. First came the comments and criticisms, small at first, but growing bolder each day. "This living room layout is so outdated," Robert would remark loudly to Sophia while I sat reading nearby. "No one designs spaces like this anymore." "Those drapes are collecting dust," Margaret Whittaker observed during her first visit after the honeymoon. "You simply must replace them with something more elegant, dear." Harold Whittaker took one look at my carefully cultivated garden and declared it amateur and lacking proper landscape architecture. Within a week, my garden, where every plant had been selected with Martha in mind, was torn out by a crew of landscapers and replaced with a sterile modern design that could have been copied from any luxury hotel. The true changes began 3 months after they moved in. I returned from grocery shopping one day to find a team of workers removing the stained glass window Martha had designed. "What is happening?" I demanded, rushing to stop them. Robert appeared from the kitchen, coffee cup in hand. "Just some necessary updates, James. That old window was blocking proper light and creating a dated look. We are installing clear glass with minimalist framing." "That window was designed by my late wife," I said, my voice shaking. "You had no right to remove it without discussing it with me." "Actually," Robert replied with a smile that never reached his eyes, "as the property owners, we have every right to make improvements." Sophia agreed it was for the best. I looked for my daughter and found her supervising workers who were packing up the family photos that had lined our hallway. "Sophia, what is going on?" She barely glanced at me. "We are updating the aesthetic, Dad. These old photos make the space feel cluttered. We will put some of them in albums for you." Day by day, room by room, my home transformed into something unrecognizable. The warm, comfortable spaces Martha and I had created were replaced with cold, minimalist designs. My belongings were gradually moved to my bedroom, which became increasingly like an island in someone else's house. The kitchen, once the heart of our home where Sophia and I had maintained our Sunday cooking tradition, was gutted and replaced with an ultra-modern design featuring concrete countertops and stainless steel appliances that I could barely operate. Our cooking Sundays ended abruptly when Sophia announced she and Robert would be brunching with the Whittakers every weekend instead. 6 months after the wedding, I was effectively confined to my bedroom and a small sitting area they generously allowed me to keep in my original style. The rest of the villa had been completely transformed. Even worse, the Whittakers began treating the place as their second home, hosting lavish parties and family gatherings, to which I was never invited. "Try to stay in your room tonight, Dad," Sophia would say before these events. "Robert's business associates are coming, and we need to make a good impression." One evening I ventured out during such a party to get a glass of water. Harold Whittaker was leading a group of men on a tour of my home. "My son and daughter-in-law have done wonders with this place," he was saying. "You would not believe the outdated monstrosity it was when they acquired it. Some old-timer designed it back when people had no concept of proper spatial flow." I stood in the shadows, unnoticed, as this man disparaged my life's work. But what truly broke my heart was seeing Sophia nodding along, a practiced society smile on her face that reminded me so much of Margaret Whittaker's expression. The final straw came when I overheard a conversation never meant for my ears. I had gone to bed early, but woke around midnight thirsty. As I approached the kitchen, I heard Robert and Sophia talking in low voices. We need to discuss the James situation, Robert was saying. Mother and father think it is awkward having him here, especially when we entertain. What do you expect me to do? Sophia sounded irritated. He has residency rights. It was the one condition when he gave us the house. Well, we need to find a solution. Father has his eye on this property for the new development project. The location is perfect. There was a pause before Sophia replied. There is that retirement community across town, the Golden Sunset. We could look into it. Perfect, Robert said. We will present it as a wonderful opportunity for him. After all, we are only thinking of his comfort and safety. I retreated to my room, my heart pounding. They were planning to remove me from my own home, the home I had built for Martha, the home that contained every memory of our life together. That night, I did not sleep at all. 1 week after overhearing that conversation, I was invited to a formal dinner with Sophia, Robert, and his parents. This was unusual, as I had been deliberately excluded from their social events for months. I dressed in my best suit, the one I had worn to Sophia's college graduation, and joined them in the dining room that no longer resembled the warm space where our family had once gathered. The table was set with china I did not recognize. Sophia and Robert sat on one side with Harold and Margaret Whitaker on the other, leaving me isolated at the end like an afterthought. A catered meal was served by staff hired for the occasion, another reminder that this was no longer my home. James, Harold began after the first course using my first name despite never having been invited to do so. We have been discussing your situation. My situation, I repeated, though I already knew what was coming. Robert leaned forward, his expression a practiced mask of concern. We have noticed that you seem to be struggling with the stairs lately, and maintaining your personal space must be becoming difficult at your age. I had never complained about stairs or housekeeping. In fact, I was still in excellent physical condition for my 62 years, something I maintained with daily walks and regular swimming. We have found the most wonderful solution, Margaret added, her voice dripping with false sweetness. The Golden Sunset Retirement Village has an opening in their luxury wing. Private suite, daily housekeeping, gourmet meals, and a full calendar of activities for seniors. Sophia reached across the table as if to take my hand, but stopped short. Dad, it would be so much better for you. You would have friends your own age and proper care if you need it. I do not need care, I said quietly. And I have residency rights to this villa. That was our agreement when I signed it over to you, Sophia. Robert cleared his throat. About that. We have consulted our attorney. The documentation was unfortunately vague about the nature of the residency arrangement. It does not explicitly guarantee you can stay indefinitely or prevent us from making necessary changes to the property. We are planning a complete renovation, Harold announced. This entire structure will be reimagined as the centerpiece of our new luxury development. The Whitaker Estates will transform this entire neighborhood. I looked at my daughter, searching for any sign of the girl I had raised. Sophia, this is our home. Your mother and I built it for our family. It is just a house, Dad, she replied coldly. And legally, it belongs to me now. I can do whatever I want with it, including giving it to Robert's family for their development. I asked, finally understanding the full scope of their plan. Harold smiled triumphantly. Sophia has generously agreed to contribute this property to our family business. In exchange, she and Robert will receive shares in the development and a penthouse in the new building. So you are simply taking my home, the home I designed and built with my own hands, and demolishing it. My voice remained steady despite the earthquake happening in my heart. Progress requires change, James, Margaret said dismissively. This outdated structure would eventually become a liability anyway. Sophia stood up suddenly and walked to a side table where her purse sat. She returned with an envelope and a set of keys, which she handed not to me, but to her father-in-law. "The transfer documents are complete," she announced. "The property is officially part of Whitaker Development Holdings as of this morning." As Harold accepted the keys to my home, Sophia turned to me with those cold, unfamiliar eyes and said the words that would haunt me. "It is theirs now, Dad. The movers will come tomorrow to help you relocate to Golden Sunset." I sat there completely stunned as tears filled my eyes. Everything I had worked for, every memory of Martha, every sacrifice I had made for my daughter meant nothing. In that moment, my heart shattered completely. "I will not go to any retirement home," I finally managed to say, standing up from the table. "I need some time to make my own arrangements." "We have already paid the deposit," Robert objected. "Your suite is ready." "I would rather sleep on a park bench than accept your charity," I replied, surprising myself with my own resolve. "I will be out within the week, but not to go where you have decided to send me." As I walked out of the dining room, I heard Harold Whitaker say, "Dramatic old man, isn't he? Do not worry. Sophia, he will come around when he realizes he has no other options." But what they did not know was that their cruelty had awakened something in me. Beyond the heartbreak, a small flame of determination began to burn. I would not go quietly. I would not simply disappear so they could erase every trace of the life Martha and I had built. The days following that devastating dinner were the darkest of my life since losing Martha. I found myself in a tiny rundown apartment on the other side of town, the only place I could afford to rent, on short notice with my modest retirement savings. The contrast between my beautiful villa and this cramped, dingy space was like falling from heaven to earth. The one-bedroom apartment had water stains on the ceiling, a kitchenette barely big enough to turn around in, and neighbors who fought loudly at all hours. The landlord had demanded 3 months' rent in advance after learning I had no current employment, depleting a significant portion of my available funds. I was permitted to take only my personal belongings from the villa. My clothes, a few books, and the small collection of photos I had managed to hide from Sophia and Robert's decluttering. Everything else, my furniture, my tools, my architectural drawings, and worst of all, the mementos of my life with Martha remained in the home that was no longer mine. The first week I barely left the apartment. I slept fitfully on a cheap mattress on the floor, ate microwavable meals, and stared at the stained walls. Depression engulfed me like a thick fog. How had my only child, the person I loved most in the world, betrayed me so completely? What had I done to deserve such cruelty? In my darkest moments, I considered ending it all. What was left for me now? My wife was gone. My daughter had rejected me. My home had been stolen. At 62, starting over seemed impossible. One night I found myself standing on the small balcony of my apartment, looking down at the parking lot 6 floors below, wondering if the fall would be quick. The ringing of my old flip phone pulled me back from the edge. I answered without checking who was calling. James Davidson, is that you?" The voice was familiar, but I could not immediately place it. "Yes, this is James," I replied, my voice hoarse from days of disuse. "It is Jack Pemberton. We worked on the Riverside project together, must have been, 15 years ago." The name brought back memories of a solid, dependable structural engineer with a booming laugh. We had gotten along well during that commercial project, but had lost touch after its completion. "Jack, yes, of course. How did you get this number?" "Been trying to reach you for a consultation on a historical renovation. Called your old office and they gave me your cell. Listen, you sound terrible. Everything okay?" Before I knew it, I was pouring out the whole sordid story. Jack listened without interruption until I finished. Jesus, James, that is criminal what they did to you. Listen, I am coming over. Text me your address. And no arguments. You hear me. 2 hours later, Jack was at my door with bags of groceries and a bottle of good whiskey. He had aged since I last saw him, his hair now completely silver, but his eyes still held that same keen intelligence and warmth. As we sat in my sparse apartment drinking whiskey from plastic cups, Jack, now a retired but still well-connected attorney, asked pointed questions about the property transfer. "Something stinks about this whole deal," he said, scratching his chin thoughtfully. "Did you have your own lawyer review the documents before you signed them?" I had used a general practice attorney recommended by a colleague. He had seemed thorough at the time, ensuring my residency rights were included, but perhaps he had missed something crucial. "I want to introduce you to my daughter Jessica," Jack continued. "Chip off the old block, but smarter than her dad ever was. She is an investigative journalist with the Tribune, specializes in exposing corporate fraud and corruption. This Whitaker development sounds like something she would be interested in." For the first time in days, I felt a flicker of hope. Not that I would necessarily get my home back, but at least that there might be some justice, some recognition of the wrong that had been done. Jack insisted I come stay in his guest house until I could get back on my feet. "It is just sitting empty since my son moved to California. Has its own entrance kitchen, the works. You would be doing me a favor keeping an eye on the property when I travel." I initially refused, not wanting charity, but Jack was persistent. "It is not charity between friends, James. It is what decent people do for each other." The guest house turned out to be a comfortable cottage in Jack's spacious backyard. Clean, well-furnished, and most importantly, quiet. That first night in a real bed, I slept soundly for the first time since the fateful dinner. The following week, I met Jessica Pemberton. She was sharp-focused and immediately interested in my story. "The Whitakers have been on my radar for some time," she explained as we sat in Jack's kitchen. "There are rumors about their business practices, the way they acquire properties, but no one has been willing to go on record against them. Your situation could be the crack in their facade we have been waiting for." Jessica began digging into the Whitaker Development Holdings Company history, while Jack connected me with a friend who specialized in real estate law to review the property transfer documents. "There is something else," I told them hesitantly. "Something I have not told anyone." I explained how during the construction of the villa, Martha and I had created a hidden room. It was a small space behind the library, accessible through a concealed door in the bookcase designed as a surprise gift for Sophia, a secret reading nook filled with treasured family mementos and journals. Martha and I documented everything during the construction. She kept detailed journals, and I have all the original plans, including the modifications that are not in the official blueprints. Those documents are still in that hidden room unless they somehow discovered it during their renovations. Jack and Jessica exchanged meaningful glances. "Those original documents could be crucial," Jack said. "They would establish your intent for the property and might contain evidence that could help us challenge the transfer." "But how do we get to them?" I asked. "I can hardly walk back in there and access a secret room." Jessica's eyes sparkled with determination. "Leave that to me. I think it is time I scheduled an interview with the Whitaker family about their exciting new development project." For the first time since my world collapsed, I felt something other than despair. It was not just anger or a desire for revenge, but something more constructive, a determination to stand up for myself and for the memory of Martha, who would have been heartbroken to see what had become of our daughter and our home. "There is one more thing you should know." Jessica added, her expression serious. "I have sources who tell me the Whitakers are in financial trouble. Their last 3 developments have gone significantly over budget, and investors are getting nervous. This new project might be a last-ditch effort to save their company. Suddenly, Sophia's betrayal took on a new dimension. Had she been manipulated by the Whitakers out of desperation, it did not excuse her actions, but it might explain them. As Jack poured us each another coffee, he patted my shoulder. "We are going to fight this, James. And we are not just going to expose them, we are going to make sure you land on your feet better than before. That is a promise." I nodded, feeling a sense of purpose return. Whether or not I ever recovered my villa, I would not allow myself to be discarded and forgotten. I would not let the Whitakers and their corruption go unchallenged. Most of all, I would not let this betrayal define the rest of my life. Over the next several weeks, Jack, Jessica, and I developed a comprehensive plan. Jack's legal expertise, Jessica's investigative skills, and my intimate knowledge of both the villa and the Whitakers' behavior created a powerful combination. We called it Operation Restoration, not just of my property, but of justice and dignity. Our first breakthrough came when Jessica's research uncovered troubling patterns in the Whitaker Development Holdings business practices. They had a history of acquiring properties through questionable means, often targeting elderly homeowners or those in vulnerable positions. Several former homeowners had complaints similar to mine, though none had pursued legal action, likely intimidated by the Whitakers' wealth and connections. They typically create a shell company for each development, Jessica explained, spreading documents across Jack's dining table. The property gets transferred multiple times between different entities they control, making it nearly impossible to trace the original transaction or hold anyone accountable. Jack's legal contact confirmed my suspicions about the transfer documents I had signed. "There are serious questions about whether you were fully informed about what you were signing," he reported. "The residency clause was deliberately vague, and there is no mention of the Whitakers' development plans, which they were clearly already formulating when you signed over the property." Armed with this information, we moved to the second phase of our plan, gathering concrete evidence. I spent days recreating the detailed plans of the villa from memory, including the location of the hidden room. Jessica used her press credentials to gain access to public records related to the property and discovered something interesting. "The Whitakers filed for permits to begin demolition next month," she reported. "But they have not disclosed the full scope of their plans to the City Planning Commission. They are claiming it is a simple renovation, not a complete teardown for a multi-unit development. That is a violation of city ordinances." Meanwhile, Jack reconnected with former colleagues in the real estate business, quietly inquiring about the Whitakers' financial situation. The rumors were confirmed. Whitaker Development Holdings was in serious trouble. Their last major project had gone significantly over budget, and investors were pulling out. Robert's position in the company was particularly precarious, as he had personally guaranteed certain loans. "They need your property to secure new financing," Jack explained. "The lakefront location makes it extremely valuable as part of a luxury development. Without it, their whole house of cards might collapse." The most daring part of our plan came next. Jessica arranged an interview with the Whitakers about their visionary new development, ostensibly for a positive business profile in the Tribune. During this interview, she would need to find a way to access the hidden room and retrieve the documents. I gave her detailed instructions on how to find and open the concealed door and what to look for once inside. "There should be a metal box behind the lowest shelf on the right side. It contains all the original blueprints, Martha's journals, and the true copy of the agreement I thought I was signing when I transferred the property." The day of the interview arrived. Jessica dressed professionally, in a conservative suit, looking every bit the business reporter. Jack and I waited anxiously at his home phones at the ready, in case anything went wrong. 3 hours later, Jessica returned, her face flushed with excitement. She placed a leather messenger bag on the table and carefully removed an old metal box. "I got it," she said triumphantly. And so much more. I recorded the entire interview with the Whitakers. They were so eager to boast about their plans that they revealed several regulatory violations without realizing it. And when I asked about the previous owner, James Davidson, they became noticeably uncomfortable. How did you get to the hidden room? I asked, my hands trembling, as I touched the metal box that contained so many precious memories. I asked for a tour of the property to better visualize the planned development. When we reached the library, I mentioned how lovely the space was and asked to take some photos. Harold was showing off about their plans to gut it completely, and Robert got a call he had to take. I had about 2 minutes alone. Your instructions were perfect. The door opened exactly as you said it would. Inside the box, everything was just as I had left it. Martha's journals chronicling the construction of our dream home and her hopes for Sophia's future. The original blueprints with my handwritten notes. Photos of the three of us throughout the years. And most importantly, my copy of the property transfer agreement, which contained significant differences from what I had actually signed. This is gold, Jack said, carefully examining the documents. The agreement you thought you were signing included much stronger protections for your residency rights and explicit prohibitions against demolishing the original structure. Jessica was already making copies of everything, creating digital backups as well. We need to move quickly, she said. Based on what I heard today, they are accelerating their timeline. They want to begin demolition next week, not next month, as the permits indicate. The final piece of our plan involved gathering testimony from others who had been mistreated by the Whitakers. Through careful networking, Jessica located a former personal assistant to Harold Whitaker, who had been fired after questioning some of the company's accounting practices. Amanda Lewis had worked for the Whitakers for 8 years and had witnessed countless examples of their unethical behavior. After Jessica assured her of anonymity and legal protection through Jack's connections, Amanda agreed to provide a sworn statement detailing specific instances of fraud, including the deliberate manipulation of contracts similar to what had happened with my property. They called it document evolution, Amanda revealed during our meeting. They would present one version for review, then substitute a different version for signing, counting on the fact that most people do not read every word before signing, especially when they trust the other party. With all these elements in place, we were ready for the final confrontation. But rather than immediately pursuing legal action, which could drag on for years with uncertain results, we devised a more direct approach. Jack, with his legal expertise, drafted a detailed letter outlining all the evidence we had gathered, the regulatory violations we had documented, and the potential legal and public relations consequences if the Whitakers proceeded with their plans. The letter did not explicitly threaten legal action, but made it abundantly clear that we were prepared to go public with everything we had discovered. This is not blackmail, Jack assured me. Everything in this letter is factual and could be submitted to the appropriate authorities at any time. We are simply giving them the opportunity to correct their actions before we are forced to do so. Jessica added her own letter on Tribune letterhead, indicating that she was researching an investigative piece on questionable development practices in the area, with a particular focus on the pattern of behavior exhibited by Whitaker Development Holdings. With these documents prepared, we made one final discovery. Through his extensive network, Jack learned that the Whitakers were hosting a major event at my villa the following weekend, a gathering of potential investors and city officials to unveil their development plans. This would be the perfect opportunity to present our case not just to the Whitakers but to everyone whose opinion mattered to them. As we finalized our preparations, I found myself feeling something unexpected, not just anger or a desire for justice, but a profound sense of peace. Whatever happened next, I was no longer a victim. I was standing up for myself, for Martha's memory, and for what was right. The Whitakers had taken my home, but in doing so, they had given me a new purpose and unexpected allies. "Are you ready for this, James?" Jack asked as we reviewed our plan one last time. "More than ready," I replied, surprising myself with the steadiness in my voice. "It is time the Whitakers learned that some things cannot be bought, sold, or stolen, not without consequences." The evening of the Whitakers' investment gala arrived clear and cool, a perfect night for the outdoor reception they had planned in what used to be my garden. Jack, Jessica, and I arrived in Jack's Mercedes dressed impeccably in formal attire. Jessica had secured legitimate press credentials for the event Jack was attending as a representative of a fictional investment group, and I was officially not on the guest list at all. "Remember," Jessica whispered as we approached the villa, now adorned with decorative lighting and signage announcing the future home of Whitaker Lakeside Estates. "We stay calm and professional no matter what happens. The evidence speaks for itself." My heart pounded as I stepped onto the property that had once been my home. Though it had only been a few months since I was forced out, the changes were already dramatic. The gardens were completely redone in a sterile commercial style. The warm exterior lighting I had carefully installed had been replaced with harsh spotlights that illuminated architectural renderings displayed on easels throughout the grounds. Inside, the transformation was even more painful to witness. The open, welcoming spaces Martha and I had designed were now cold and impersonal, stripped of character and family history. A scale model of the planned development dominated what had once been our living room, showing how my beloved villa would be demolished to make way for luxury condominiums. We separated according to plan. Jessica moved among the guests with her recorder and notebook, asking pointed questions about the development. Jack engaged with potential investors, subtly probing for their knowledge about the Whitakers' financial situation and regulatory compliance. I remained in the background, unrecognized in my formal attire, observing the scene with a mixture of grief and determination. Then I spotted Sophia across the room, standing beside Robert as they chatted with city officials. She was wearing an elegant black dress that Martha had always wanted to see her, in her hair styled in an updo that made her look so much like her mother that my breath caught. For a moment, our eyes met across the crowded room. A flicker of recognition crossed her face, followed by confusion and then alarm. She whispered something to Robert, who turned and saw me. His expression darkened immediately. Before they could approach, Harold Whitaker took the center of the room, tapping a champagne glass for attention. "Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, thank you for joining us this evening for this exciting unveiling. Whitaker Lakeside Estates represents the future of luxury living in our community." As he continued his presentation, Jack and Jessica moved into position on opposite sides of the room. I stepped forward, positioning myself where everyone could see me. When Harold paused for applause after revealing the architectural renderings, Jessica raised her hand. "Mr. Whitaker, Jessica Pemberton from the Tribune. Can you comment on the allegations that this property was acquired through fraudulent means from its previous owner, the architect who actually designed and built this villa?" A murmur ran through the crowd. Harold's smile faltered momentarily before he recovered. "I am not aware of any such allegations. This property was legally acquired through standard real estate transactions." Jack stepped forward then. "Perhaps you can explain why the demolition permits you have filed with the City Planning Commission do not accurately reflect the scope of development shown in these renderings that would constitute a serious regulatory violation." The room grew quiet. Robert moved forward, attempting damage control. "Ladies and gentlemen, please disregard these interruptions. We have all proper approvals and documentation. These individuals are not authorized to be here." It was my moment to speak. Actually, Robert, I would argue that I have more right to be here than anyone. After all, I designed and built this house with my own hands. All eyes turned to me. Sophia's face had gone pale. James Davidson. I introduced myself to the crowd. The previous owner of this property before it was taken from me through deliberately misleading documentation by the Whitaker family. Documentation that we now have evidence of, along with proof of multiple regulatory violations and fraudulent business practices. Harold Whitaker's face flushed with anger. Security, remove these people immediately. Before you do that, Jessica called out, holding up her press badge, you might want to consider that everything we have discussed tonight is documented in detail and ready for publication. We also have copies of all evidence safely stored with multiple attorneys. Removing us won't remove the problem. Robert pushed through the crowd toward us, his carefully cultivated charm completely evaporated. This is ridiculous. You signed over the property willingly, old man. Did I countered, my voice steady. I signed documents that guaranteed my lifetime residency and prohibited major structural changes to the house. Documents that mysteriously transformed after I signed them. Your former assistant, Amanda Lewis, has provided a sworn statement about your company's practice of what you call document evolution. The mention of Amanda's name caused both Harold and Robert to freeze. Several investors began murmuring among themselves, and a city official stepped away making a phone call. Sophia finally approached, her expression a mixture of anger and fear. Dad, what are you doing? You are embarrassing yourself, embarrassing all of us. Am I Sophia, or am I finally standing up for myself and for what your mother and I built? Did you know that Robert and his family were already planning to demolish our home when you gave it to them? Did you know they are in financial trouble and needed this property to save their failing business? Her eyes widened, and she looked to Robert, who avoided her gaze. It was answer enough. Ladies and gentlemen, Jack announced to the increasingly uncomfortable crowd, we are not here to cause a scene. We are simply presenting facts. The Whitakers have engaged in a pattern of questionable business practices that we have thoroughly documented. We are prepared to submit all evidence to the appropriate authorities and media outlets unless a reasonable resolution can be reached. Harold Whitaker, his face now mottled with rage, pushed his way to us. What do you want? Money, is that it? I shook my head. This was never about money, Mr. Whitaker. This was about my home, my memories, and my dignity. Things you and your family took without a second thought. Name your price, he hissed, quiet enough that only those closest could hear. I don't want to destroy your business or your reputation, I replied calmly, but I won't allow you to destroy what I built. I propose a compromise. Over the next hour, as the awkward gathering slowly dispersed, we negotiated in the library, the very room where the hidden documents had been stored. Jack and Jessica remained by my side, ensuring that the Whitakers understood the seriousness of our evidence. In the end, we reached an agreement. The villa would not be demolished. Instead, I would be compensated fairly for its true market value, allowing me to purchase a new home of my choice. The Whitakers could proceed with developing the surrounding land, but the original structure would remain intact, perhaps as a clubhouse or community center for the new development. Additionally, Harold Whitaker would privately acknowledge the ethical breaches in their business practices and agree to implement proper oversight to prevent similar situations in the future. Jessica would not publish her investigative piece as long as the agreement was honored, but the documentation would remain in secure storage as insurance. As the terms were finalized and preliminary documents drawn up, Sophia pulled me aside. For the first time, I saw uncertainty in her eyes. Did you know, she asked quietly, about their financial problems, about their plans to tear down the house? No. I answered honestly. But I would have told you if you had asked me if you had trusted me instead of them. Tears filled her eyes. I did not know either. Robert said they were just going to renovate, modernize. He said it would increase the value for all of us. She paused, struggling with her words. I thought I was doing the right thing, making a smart decision for our future. I never meant to hurt you, Dad. I looked at my daughter, seeing both the woman she had become and the little girl I had raised. The pain was still there, the betrayal still fresh, but beneath it was something else, the unbreakable bond between parent and child, damaged, but perhaps not destroyed. We have both made mistakes, Sophia. I should have been more careful with the documentation, should have recognized how you were being influenced. But what hurt most wasn't losing the house. It was feeling like I had lost you. She reached for my hand tentatively. I am so sorry, Dad. I don't know if you can ever forgive me, but I want to try to make things right. Forgiveness takes time, I told her gently. But it starts with truth and accountability. We both have work to do. When we left the villa that night, I knew I would never live there again. But I had gained something more valuable than property, self-respect, justice, and perhaps the beginning of reconciliation with my daughter. 6 months after the confrontation at the Whitaker's gala, my life had transformed in ways I never could have imagined. The settlement money allowed me to purchase a modest but beautiful cottage near the beach, something Martha and I had always dreamed of for our retirement, with large windows that let in abundant natural light and a spacious deck overlooking the water. It became my sanctuary, my fresh start. Robert and Sophia's marriage did not survive the aftermath of our confrontation. Once Sophia understood the full extent of the deception, not just against me, but against her as well, she filed for divorce. The Whitaker family's business troubles eventually became public knowledge when several investors filed lawsuits, though our agreement kept my specific situation out of the headlines. Jack and Jessica became not just allies, but dear friends. Jack, with his booming laugh and practical wisdom, often joined me for fishing trips off my new deck. Jessica's investigative piece on predatory real estate practices, while not specifically mentioning the Whitakers, earned her a prestigious journalism award and led to regulatory reforms that would protect others from similar exploitation. Most significantly, I found purpose again. Using a portion of the settlement money, I established a small foundation, offering architecture and construction workshops for disadvantaged youth. Twice a week, I taught teenagers the basics of design building and craftsmanship in a community center space donated by a local business owner who had read Jessica's article and wanted to support our cause. You have a real gift for teaching, James, the center's director told me after observing a session. These kids connect with you in a way they don't with other instructors. Perhaps it was because I shared my own story with them, not hiding my failures and setbacks alongside my successes. I wanted them to understand that buildings like lives are not defined by a single blueprint. They can be redesigned, rebuilt, reimagined. The most difficult and gradual change was in my relationship with Sophia. Our reconciliation began with awkward coffee meetings where conversation was strained and the past loomed large between us. But slowly, painfully, we began to rebuild trust. I keep thinking about Mom, Sophia said during one of these meetings 3 months after the divorce was finalized. About what she would think of all this. Of me. Your mother believed in forgiveness, I told her, remembering Martha's generous spirit. She also believed in learning from mistakes. She would have been disappointed, yes, but she would have wanted us to find our way back to each other. Sophia had moved into a small apartment and returned to her marketing career, declining alimony from Robert, despite his family's still considerable wealth. I want to stand on my own, she explained. to remember who I was before I lost myself in their world. It was a cool autumn morning when Sophia visited my cottage for the first time. She stood on the deck looking out at the waves, the wind tousling her hair. "It suits you," she said softly. "I think Mom would have loved it here." "She would have," I agreed, standing beside her, "though she would have immediately started planning renovations and improvements." Sophia laughed a genuine laugh that reminded me of happier times. "Remember how she used to rearrange the furniture every season? You would come home and find the entire living room transformed, and complain about it for exactly 5 minutes before admitting she was right," I added, smiling at the memory. We spent that day sharing stories about Martha, about our family, before everything fell apart. It was painful at times, but also healing, like lancing a wound to let it properly mend. Before she left, Sophia hesitated at the door. "Dad, I found something when I was packing my things from the house." She reached into her purse and pulled out a small worn book. "Mom's recipe journal. I thought you should have it." I took the book with trembling hands, recognizing Martha's flowing handwriting on the cover. Inside were all the recipes we had cooked together as a family, with her notes and adjustments in the margins. On the last page was a recipe for chocolate chip cookies with a note. "James loves these on rainy days. Always make extra." "Thank you," I said, unable to say more past the lump in my throat. Sophia nodded, understanding in her eyes. "Maybe sometime we could cook together again, like we used to on Sundays." "I would like that," I replied. It was a small step, but a meaningful one. As the months passed and seasons changed, I found peace in my new life. The pain had not disappeared entirely, and perhaps it never would. But it had transformed into something else: wisdom, resilience, and a deeper appreciation for what truly matters. One evening, sitting on my deck, watching the sunset paint the sky in brilliant oranges and pinks, I thought about the journey that had brought me here. I had lost my home, nearly lost my daughter, and been forced to start over at an age when most people are settling into comfortable routines. Yet somehow, through that loss and betrayal, I had found a richer life, new connections, and a sense of purpose I had been missing. The villa had been just a structure after all. Beautiful and meaningful, yes, filled with memories, and crafted with love, but still just walls and roof and foundation. The true foundations, the relationships, the self, respect, the capacity to begin again, those were the things no one could take away. Now I understand that sometimes we need to lose what we think we cannot live without to discover what we truly need. That betrayal, painful as it is, can lead to unexpected growth. That starting over is not just for the young, but for anyone brave enough to take that first step into uncertainty. If you have ever faced betrayal or loss, if you have ever had to rebuild your life from the ground up, know that you are not alone. There is strength in you that perhaps you have not yet discovered. There is a future waiting that might be different from what you imagined, but no less meaningful. I would love to hear your stories of resilience and new beginnings in the comments below. Have you ever had to start over after a significant loss? What helped you find your way forward? Please share your experiences and let us support one another on this journey. If this story touched you, please consider subscribing to hear more reflections from a life that continues to surprise me with its twists and turns. And remember, sharing these stories helps others who might be facing similar challenges. Thank you for listening to an old architect who learned late in life that sometimes our most beautiful designs emerge from the ruins of what came before.